Welcome, everyone. My name is Sarah Brubaker, and I'm joining you today from Kitchener, Ontario in Canada on the territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral peoples. I volunteered 10 years ago with Seville in Jerusalem, and I'm grateful to be joining you today. Thank you for joining us for the latest Kumi Now online gathering, addressing the medical needs and rights of Palestinians, particularly in Gaza. Before we start, I'd like to remind you that this session is being broadcast live on Facebook. If you do not wish to appear, please turn off your video feed. We would also love it if you could quickly share the Facebook post on Facebook so that others may join. The link will be shared in the chat. We hope that you will find this session interesting and informative. I'd like to start by having everyone you'll be seeing today introduce themselves. Omar?
My name is Omar Harami. I'm from Jerusalem and from the Sabeel office. It's a pleasure to be with you.
I am Denise. I am Palestinian storyteller from Haifa, and I am very lucky to be with you. Fikr. Fikr, can you introduce yourself?
I was unable to unmute myself to the host. Anyway, this is Fikr Shalltoot. I'm the Director of Medical Aid for Palestinians. I'm based in Gaza. And the Director of the OPMAP office here. And I've been working in the health sector for the last 25 years of my career. And yeah, that's all for now. Thank you.
Next, Omar will be sharing with us an update on realities on the ground, some news.
Thank you, Sarah. We will try to be as brief as possible with giving an update on the ground. I mean, Israel seized more tents donated by the humanitarian organizations to Palestinian Bedouins in the Humsa al-Baqa'i yesterday. Israel continues to block international aid since demolishing or confiscating 46 structures in the community in the past 1 week alone. So this is making lots of news around the world, and especially inside Palestine and Israel. So we ask you to hold this community in your prayers and thoughts. Many of you are aware of the groundbreaking ICC, International Criminal Court. The ICC ruled that it can investigate alleged war crimes in Palestine, despite all of the Israeli advocacy and pressure and the objections that they were making. Many Palestinians were seeing the ruling by the International Criminal Court as having jurisdiction over Palestinian territories as a belated chance for justice for victims, for Palestinian victims of Israeli attacks. All around the country, I mean, Palestinian human rights groups are welcoming the ICC ruling and are seeing it as a glimpse of hope for the future. Another hopeful news is that over 80 UK parliamentarians signed the letter, which is we will be sharing it in an email. Over 80 UK parliamentarians, they've signed a letter calling on Israel to stop the dispossession of Palestinian families in East Jerusalem, or face serious diplomatic consequences. So this is, I mean, this has happened before, but not to this level from the UK. So we are feeling more and more pressure coming from the UK diplomats and people in authority taking a stronger position towards Israel violations. For the past 2 years, Palestinian factions, representatives from over 14 Palestinian factions are meeting in Cairo. The Palestinian Authority announced that there will be elections, hopefully in May. And we have had over 15 years of divisions within our Palestinian community. So our thoughts are, although we're not very much optimistic, but our thoughts are in Cairo, and we hope that they would reach an agreement and consensus to hold and transparent and democratic elections. In the month of January, again, detentions and arrests continue. There has been over 456 Palestinians who were arrested in the occupied territories during the month of January. 20% of them, over 20%, 93 minors and 8 women were arrested. The biggest percentage, over 40% of these of people who were arrested were in East Jerusalem alone. And 56 of the minors were also from East Jerusalem. So this is according to a report that was just released 2 days ago by the Palestinian prisoners advocacy groups. So thank you, and we move to Denise.
Good evening, everybody. I am so lucky to be with you, with the Sabil and the community of the Sabil for the 5th week. I am going to share with you a folk tale, but it's my first time really not to explain, but why I choose this folk tale, because we are seeing but not watching, hearing but not listening. And the most important thing, our hearts are closed and we don't open our heart. So once upon a time, there was a little boy. He was about 10 years old. And he was really suffering because he had no luck. He was such a clumsy, never win a game. He had almost no friends. And whenever he prepared his homework, and he raised his hand, Miss, I want to answer, the teacher ignored him. And in the opposite, when he didn't prepare his homework, the teacher chose him to go out and solve the problems, and he couldn't do it. His mother felt very sad for him. She was really seeing him suffering so much, and she wanted really to help him. Then, long ago, there was no psychological counselor or advisor, school's advisor. There, for any problem, the people went to the sheikh or to the priest. So she went to the sheikh and told him about Rami. His name was Rami. She told him, I really feel very sorry for my child. He is my only child, my only boy, and he's really suffering. Maybe you give me an advice. He told her, I think the most helpful thing for your child is to change his name from Rami to Mahzouz. Mahzouz in Arabic, it's lucky. So from now on, his name will be Mahzouz. And I hope he will have something from his name, inspiration. Okay, she thanked him very much. She went home, told her husband, he is not Rami anymore. He is Mahzouz, okay? She went to the uncles, to the aunts, to the cousins. She told everybody around, the neighbors, that she changed, that Rami now have a new name. His name is Mahzouz. She went to the school, to the teachers, to the headmaster, told him this information, very important information. And you think it's changed anything? In Arabic, we say that if you have no luck, nothing will, and you can do anything and nothing will change. And you can put hundreds of candles around you and you will be unlucky always. So he continued to be unlucky. When everybody was in love and somebody loved him, nobody even looked toward him. And he accepted this, and he never told his mother about this problem. His mother was sure that she solved the problem because he don't want his mother to be really sad about him. But when he grew up and was time for marriage, and you know, for marriage you need luck. It's like, if you don't have luck, you will not have a good partner. So he looked after his luck at the basement, um, under the beds, around the house. He didn't find it. He said, I have to go to the market. He went to the butcher. He asked him, I can't find luck in your place. I told him, what happened to you? What luck? I am selling kebab, meat. I don't sell luck. He went around in the market, asked a lot of places. People think that he gets crazy. He was out really angry. A woman, an old woman, she was old friend of his mother's friend. He said, "Oh, ahlan, ahlan, Rami. Oh, sorry, Mahzouz. How are you?" So I am really very angry. I am searching for my luck. Say, what? You are searching for your luck in the market? You crazy? You have to go to the end of the world. There is a big rock, and there is the Sheikh of the luck, Sheikh al-Haz. Go there and ask him to give you an advice so you can find your luck. Okay? He had no luck, but he was really serious, very unlazy person. He went to his journey. He walked for days, weeks, months. He reached a huge forest, but nothing interested him but a very dirty fur in one corner of this forest. He came closer to it and he discovered that is a breathing creature. Oh. And when he approached it, he discovered it was a wolf, but very weak, unhealthy wolf. And when he saw him, he hardly raised his head and say, "Who are you? What you are doing here? I am Mahzouz. I am lucky, and I am going to in my journey to search for my luck to the Sheikh of the luck. Oh, please, please, look, I am so unlucky. Please, when you found your luck, also ask about my luck. Okay, I can do it. بالعربي محظوظ قد وقدود. I really can do it. The wolf felt better. Mahzouz said goodbye, continue his journey. He walked for days, weeks, months. He reached a huge valley, but there was only one tree in this valley, and on this tree was 2 leaves only. When he get closer to the tree asked, "Who are you? What you are doing here?" "I am Mahzouz. I am going in my journey to search for my luck. Oh, please, when you find your luck, bring me also the advice to find my luck. Look at me. I almost have only those 2 leaves and I will die if I will lose them." Say, "Okay, I am Mahzouz. I can do it." He continued his walking and the tree was really happy. He felt really that there is hope. Mahzouz continued his walk. He walked for days, weeks, months, until he reached a huge field with a lot of vegetables and fruit that you know and you don't know, that never ever somebody saw such a huge numbers of vegetables and unique fruits. And beside this field, there was a huge, big, marvelous garden with lovely flowers from all the colors and the smells. It was really like piece of heaven. Beside this garden, there was a very beautiful small palace with a young lady. She was such beautiful, but he never ever saw such a beautiful one. And she was really intention, and she asked him, "Who are you? What you are doing here?" "I am Mahzuz, and I am in my journey to find my luck." "Oh, please, I'm feeling so unlucky. Please, when you found your luck, also ask about mine." "Okay, I will do it. I am a gentleman." And the young lady was really hopeful that maybe she will have finally solved her problem. Mahzuz continued his walk, his journey. He walked for days, weeks, and months until he reached the end of the world. And he went up to the rock and he was shouting, "Ya Sheikh Al Haz, please give me advice so I can find my luck." And he heard the voice, and it was, "Mahzuz, you have to open your eyes and watch, and open your ears and listen. And the most important thing, you have to open your heart, and your luck will come to you." Thank you, dear Sheikh Al Haz. You forgot about some. Ah, yes, forgot about the wolf, the tree, and the young woman. The Sheikh told him what he have to tell those three creatures and the lady about what to do so they have their luck. He thanked him again, and went back in his way. He walked for days, weeks, months. He reached the young, most beautiful woman in the world. And she was really excited and asked him, "Oh, so Mahmoud, what about my luck?" And he said, "It's very easy. You are unlucky because you are alone. The moment you will see a young man and your heart will beat very hard and you will feel some good feeling about him, marry him." Mahmoud, "I think that I really like you and my heart is like really. Oh, can you marry me?" "Oh, what you think? I am really busy. I have no time to marry you. I have to open my eyes and my ears and to open my heart and go searching for my luck." The young lady, she didn't ask him again. It's against her dignity also to ask him and to beg him to marry her. No, but she will hardly see any man. But this was her destiny. So he left this young lady and went back. He walked and walked and walked for days, weeks, and months until he reached the valley with the tree, and only one leaf left on her branch. She was happy to see him again. Say, "Okay, what about my luck?" "Ah, it's very easy. Beneath your trunk there is a big treasure. Because of that, the food is not reaching your trunk and your branch, and or your leaves fall down." She said, "Okay, dig and take the treasure, and you will save me." So, oh, I have no time. Not for you, not for the young lady. I have to go searching for my luck. I have to open my eyes, my ears, and the most important, to open my heart and find my luck. The tree was really very sad because she will die, but she had nothing to do. Mahzuz, the lucky, continued his walk. He walked for days, weeks, and months until he reached the forest and the very sick, weak wolf. When the wolf saw him, he was really happy. He was very weak, hardly breathing, and he hardly talked. And he said, "Oh, Mahzuz, I am happy that you are back. What about my luck?" He said, "It's very easy. You are sick and weak because you didn't eat anything. The first stupid person who will pass here, you have to swallow him and you will solve your problem." And the wolf did this. He hardly but opened his mouth very and swallowed Mahzuz. حكايتي حكيتها وبقلوبكم خبيتها، ويا ريت تحبوها زي ما أنا حبيتها. I told you my story and I sent it direct to your heart and I hope you will love it. And this is one of my favorite folk tales. Thank you for listening and bye for everybody.
Thank you so much, Denise. That really helps us, hopefully, to open our ears and our eyes and our hearts.
The most
we'd like-
important, our heart. Our heart. We almost all of us, we are with closing hearts. Don't.
Yes,
Thank
especially our hearts. Thank you so
Yes.
much. We would like now to turn to Fikr Shalltoot, and she will be sharing some of her stories and news with us from Gaza. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you for all guys at Sabil and for all of you guys who are interested to hear about the situation, particularly the health situation in Gaza. If you allow me, I'm gonna share my screen, a few slides. Can you see it? Okay. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So basically, I'm going to give a little bit of a view about the situation in Gaza. But before that, I'm going to start, introducing the organization that I've been working for the last more than 15 years. Actually, it's, I work for MAB as a director for the office in Gaza. MAB actually is a British charity which was established in 1984 by Dr. Sui Ang. Dr. Sui Ang witnessed the Sabra and Shatila massacre in Lebanon, and then she went back to the UK, and with some of her medical colleagues, they established medical aid for Palestinians. And the whole purpose at that time was not to send out doctors and nurses to provide frontline care for refugees in Lebanon, at the Lebanese camp, sorry. In Palestine, actually, medical aid for Palestinians started its work in 1989, by the first, just slightly after the start of the first Intifada, and then in 2001 after the second Intifada. So basically, our headquarters is in the UK, and run 3 offices, one in Gaza and one in West Bank, and the third is in Lebanon, in Beirut. Our work actually, or our mission is to work for health and dignity of Palestinians who live under occupation and as refugees. Goal to improve the health and well-being of Palestinians and the capacity of our local partners, including colleagues from ministry or from local health organizations. We work on 5 thematic areas, including emergency and complex medical care, women and child health, mental health and psychosocial support, and advocacy toward the right of health for Palestinians. MAB also supports the implementation of almost 20 projects in Gaza, and we run these projects as mentioned, organizations, and also with the local hospitals and primary healthcare centers. I'd like to give you a little bit of overview about the situation in Gaza before I go in details about the health situation.
Hi, Fikr.
So actually, Gaza, it's people. Yes.
Just was wondering if you could put it into a
Can you
slideshow or
hear me?
presentation mode. We can hear you. We're wondering if you could put it into presentation mode so we can see the words
Yes.
more clearly.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, but we would like to see the presentation mode so we can read the slides better.
You want to see it bigger? Okay.
Yeah.
Let me try. Okay. What about this? Is that better?
Yes, thank you. Perfect.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, so a little bit of overview about the situation in Gaza. As I mentioned, almost 2 million people live in Gaza in 365 square kilometers. Almost 2/3 of the population are refugees. 1.4 million are registered as refugees, and about 5,500 inhabitants live in each square kilometer. Over 68% of the population are severely or moderately food insecure. And we may say, 4 out of 5 families actually receive kind of assistance in order to continue their daily life. The blockade has been imposed by the Israelis on Gaza since 2007. And this blockade actually is impacting the economic situation. Actually, it's impacting all life aspects in Gaza, and the access and the people movement, etc. But negatively affecting the economic situation inside Gaza. According to the UN General Assembly report, almost 16.7 billion loss were recorded in 10 years during this blockade. This is between 2007 and 2017. Unfortunately, the unemployment rate is growing up. It's standing now at 45%, with 69.5% among youth, the newly graduate people. Gaza also suffered from a chronic electricity deficit since 2007, the health sector, as well as the water and sanitation, and also at the household level for everyone who live in Gaza. No access to potable water, as 97% of our groundwater in Gaza is unfit for human consumption. The security situation is aid. Up to 2014, some of you perhaps know that Gaza has exposed to 3 major aggressions. And throughout the period till now, actually, Gaza been exposed to incursions and the spikes of, escalations, airstrikes, etc., that happen from time to time. In addition, in 2018, when the Great March of Returns demonstrations started at the border of Gaza, when people started to demonstrate to demand their rights of return and to return back to their villages in 1948, 315, this is, and of these injuries actually who were left are 1,200 of complex limb reconstruction, the people who need reconstruction services and surgeries, combined with some subspecialties as neuro and plastic interventions. And for your information, actually, these people, each one, the cost of the treatment for some of those patients cost up to $40,000 US. And this is the estimation by our who used to come to Gaza to support the surgeries for these patients. And the treatment journey for these patients take up to 3 years. And this is only for the person to sustain part of his life, but not necessarily to return to his, his or her full function as he or she used to function before the injury. Also, Gaza have limited access to fund in comparison with the needs, because the needs actually is quite, as I mentioned, the economic situation is really bad with the blockade now for 13 years. On the top of that, there was a significant cut of the US fund, UNRWA, who support plenty of service, educational, mental health, and water and sanitation services in the Palestinian camps in Gaza, and also impacted the delivery of the projects for many of the US-funded organizations. Currently, within the COVID-19 context, actually, the poverty is rising, unemployment also, and the household debts is increasing. And this is because we have a significant number of our people in Gaza. They are living on daily labor or day labor. And with the, the public health measures that the government or the local authority have applied in Gaza, and the lockdown has also impacted, the ability of these people and not to be able to gain their daily living. So this has contributed to rising the poverty within Gaza. So the key humanitarian health issues, if we're talking about the key issues we talk about in Gaza, as I mentioned, the situation in Gaza is unstable all the time. So we live in a protracted emergency. Actually, the UN have warned that the health system in Gaza is on the brink of collapse. And this is because the health system has to deal all the time with this continuing ongoing emergency situation. A major aggression, but there is a daily ongoing kind of activities that impact the health system and cause people with a trauma and to have to deal with emergency situations, in addition, of course, to the blockade and now the COVID-19. The Gaza health system and medical supplies, there is severe and long-term shortages in medicine and disposables. You will find the medicine, for example, and for drugs items, always it stands at between 45 to 50%, always at zero stock. And for the medical supplies, it stands at the 30 to 33% of our medical or the medical disposables that is needed at the hospital and primary healthcare center is always at zero stock. The primary healthcare system is somehow fragmented. It's run by the Ministry of Health and sometimes by UNRWA and the local NGOs, but it's not, it lacks this kind of synergy and the to be connected and to be complementary together. We have a reduced number of skilled and motivated health workers. And this is again, given the financial crisis and the blockade on Gaza and perhaps the political division between West Bank and Gaza, many of our health, or the majority of our health workers who run, hospitals and primary healthcare centers are not receiving their full salaries. And for many of them, in order to make their livings, they were looking for, opportunities out of Gaza. So at least 200 of the most skilled people of doctors have left Gaza, looking for better opportunities. Now, within the context of COVID-19, almost 1,870 Palestinian health workers were infected with COVID-19. And this is a significant number, actually, when we numbers in Gaza يعني, are not reaching even 10,000 people, and because the Ministry also of Health, they are applying very strict measures, so they have to be on a quarantine, and the people in contacts as well. So this number does mean that a quite big number of the health workers, they are impacted, and consequently the patients in the hospitals. The need for referral out of Gaza is quite necessary, and again, given the circumstances, the lack of essential drugs and consumables and equipment, the lack of skilled personnel, and the lack of training opportunities for our health workers, etc. This is make it, the medical referral has become a necessity, and there's like a need out of Gaza. More than 11,500 patients are currently on the waiting list for elective surgeries. And this is it, because now the focus is on COVID-19 or dealing with patients related to COVID-19, but also because of suspension of medical teams. Gaza used to receive plenty of medical teams from different organizations who used to come into Gaza to perform, the very complicated surgeries, to reduce the referral out of Gaza. And now, since 1 year, almost 1 year, none of these teams were able to come given the COVID-19 situation. In addition to that, also the lack of supplies. This is make the waiting list for many of the surgeries, accumulated, and have to wait. Unfortunately, even this waiting list include people who, I heard this from the International Cooperation Department at the Ministry, and they said, that some of these patients, they shouldn't be actually at the waiting list. When we talk about people who need diagnostic catheterization, cardiac catheterization, these people, they cannot wait for a long period. They cannot wait for a few months. In many occasions, these people have to have this cardiac cath as soon as possible in order to be diagnosed and treated. But many of these patients are also on the waiting list, and according to the Ministry of Health, they believe some of them may have died while waiting for their catheterization. In Gaza also, we have still trauma casualties. As I mentioned, because we've been through this emergency situation, through aggressions that happen and escalation that happen from time to time, and also the Great Return March demonstrations, which left lots of injuries. So we have too many casualties that still need long-term and expensive treatment. I think in all over, in many countries, though the majority of the countries, even in some of the developing countries, the prevalence of wasting and stunting and the malnutrition in general, is making some progress. But the situation in Gaza is unlike this situation in any other place. Actually, it's deteriorating in Gaza. It's not about comparing it with Africa. Even in some countries in Africa, even if the prevalence is still higher than Gaza, but at least they are making a progress. They are improving. But in Gaza, the situation is getting worse, and we are talking about like more than 10.5% of our children are stunted now. And when we talk about stunting, so this means that people, these children, they are not only short for their age, but this have impact on their development and their cognitive development and their achievement in the future. So these children, they will be disadvantaged, and this is start as early as they are growing because of the poor economic status within Gaza and the deteriorated economic situation within Gaza. Unfortunately, also the psychosocial well-being, the gender-based violence, the mental health have been impacted by the ongoing closure of the borders and the instability, the unstable situation, the hostilities, the deteriorated socio-economic status, the lockdown. There are plenty of reports in the, talking about, psychosocial distress for people, the increased gender-based violence due to these factors. We have a significant number of people with disability in Gaza, and unfortunately, this group has still been neglected, and they have very poor access to the very basic needs, actually, very basic needs. Medical referral. Flag this subject because I mentioned that the situation or the health situation in Gaza does not allow, treatment for all cases or the very complicated cases. So many of our patients, hundreds of patients, they need referral in order for their lives to be saved. People get referred out of Gaza, usually are cancer patients or people who need complicated or complex orthopedic surgeries, neurosurgeries, ophthalmic surgeries. And usually they get referred to Spank or to East Jerusalem hospitals. Before COVID-19, 1,200 people used to be referred out of Gaza through areas crossing, which is the crossing between Gaza and Israel. However, since March, when the Minister of Health declared that the COVID-19 started, so there was a significant drop of cases to be referred. This is not because they are not in need, but this is because that the closure of Gaza and the measures that were taken in order to reduce the spread of the coronavirus. 2020, there was only 700 referral, while in April it was only 113, and then in May it was 105. And this is comparing with January, February, it was 1,200 per month. So we are talking about significant drop. And then due to when Israel announced the annexation, and which followed after that by the suspension of the coordination between BA and Israel. So the coordination for the patients has stopped. Perhaps I forget to mention that any patient who needs to leave Gaza for a treatment, even if he or she is a patient and critically ill, he or she has to go through medical referral papers and leave Gaza. No, they have to apply in advance for a permit from the Israelis, and this permit may take a few weeks until approved or denied.
Fikr, you are on mute.
Sorry, I don't know when the internet
10 seconds.
was
10 seconds. We lost you for 10 seconds.
only. Okay. All right. Sorry for that. Just 1 second to go back to medical referral. All right. And just to make this bigger. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
you're doing great.
Yeah. So actually, يعني, due to the annexation and the suspension of coordination between BA and Israel, WHO office in Gaza and the Palestinian Center for Human Rights and the ICRC, they stepped in to coordinate for patients, but however, they were doing this only for a few tens of patients, you know, to leave Gaza for a treatment. So, يعني comparing 2019, for example, with the 2020, in 2019 there was 24,300 application يعني for patients referral. Of these, 65% were approved by the Israelis, while in 2020, and due to COVID-19 and then the issue about the annexation, the number of applications dropped to 8,000 and the approval rate was 67%, while it was for their companions only 45%. So actually, yani, what we learn from this, you know, that even the treatment of patients is linked to the political situation. It's linked to the overall, you know, situation. I mean, if it's like COVID-19 or there is like a political issue between the BA and Israel, there is a financial crisis. So the patients in Gaza, they lose the access, you know, to their treatment. According to WHO, actually, they have registered number of cases who have lost their lives actually while يعني waiting for their coordination for permits in order to be able to travel to you know, to East Jerusalem or to West Bank. I know a story that was shared in one of the advocacy reports by WHO about a little child. Her age is 9 years old, from leukemia, and she needed bone marrow transplantation. She was referred to a hospital in the West Bank, Najah Hospital, and this was in early March, and then they couldn't do the treatment for her at that time in that hospital. And she then was referred again to a hospital in East Jerusalem, to Augusta Victoria. And again, they were not able to do the treatment for her. And she needed to be referred to Amman, to Al Hussein Hospital in Jordan. But because the crossing were, you know, the crossing between the West Bank and Jordan were closed, so the child was brought back to Gaza. And she was on chemotherapy in Gaza, and unfortunately, while waiting coordination again in order to be able to travel, yani, she has lost her life. So this kind of stories that is happening while people are waiting for their, you know, to be referred for their treatment. There are too many stories about patients who are being you know, referred for a treatment, but being arrested at Erez crossing by the Israelis. In some occasions, if they are not arrested, some of their companions are arrested. So yani, this is how it's the situation for the medical referral, which is supposed to be like a straightforward process. It's just a basic right for any person in the world not to have access to treatment, but it's not actually the case for the people in Gaza. It's a struggle to get your right to health and the treatment. So the current health situation in Gaza, The Ministry of Health in Gaza is the key health provider for primary and secondary care. It's supported by UNRWA, who run primary health care station of the refugees in Gaza. The total bed capacity in Gaza is only 3,000 beds. And when we talk about, looking to the population, we talk about 2 million people, and we only have 3,000 beds. The number of ICU ventilators, just by the start of COVID-19, was only 63 ventilators at all Ministry of Health hospitals. And this is far below, the standards. But with COVID-19, it was a big disaster. Ministry of Health were not able to plan or to equip the ICU units they prepared to receive the COVID-19 cases at the beginning. And actually, they have waited a few months before the ICRC and WHO were able to procure some of these ventilators and bring into Gaza. The Ministry of Health, they have designated 2 hospitals in Gaza to receive COVID-19 cases. One of them is in the south, it's called the Gaza European Hospitals, and the other one is the Turkish hospitals. And the total bed capacity for these hospitals, for the bed for the 2 hospitals together, almost 700 beds. They have allocated a team to work in the 2 hospitals and train them and redeployed them to these hospitals. However, I have to say that all the training happened by and led by only one person who is, one doctor who is specialized in infection control. So we didn't have like a team of people to work for COVID-19 in Gaza and to train people. So everything was really, dependent on this person who was trying to, to work 24 hours a day in order to train as much as possible of the nurses and doctors to, on one hand, and how to use the personal protective equipment, and on the other hand, also the infection control, infection prevention and control. The Minister of Health has been quite busy trying to build their testing capacity. At the beginning, they were not able to test only a few hundreds per day. However, after the intervention from some organizations, when they brought, the equipment and the testing kits, etc., they are now, roughly, they are conducting the positivity rate in Gaza, actually, in December, it was 37, and it was actually the peak in Gaza in December, and it reached 37% of the tested cases. However, now it has dropped to 16%, and this is due, we believe it's due to the public health measures applied by the local authorities and the strict lockdown they have applied for the last 2 months. The health services for non-COVID patients were interrupted. Now all the focus is on COVID-19 patients, even the attention for emergency items, for equipment, etc. It's all for COVID-19 patients. So unfortunately, the other patients, chronic, patients who suffer from hypertension, diabetic, even the diabetes, and even the patients with cancer, etc., they all were neglected to a certain extent. As I mentioned, the emergency response from donors is focused on COVID-19. So, the health organizations in Gaza and our hospitals, they are are suffering. The zero stock items for the non-COVID cases is increasing. Because the whole focus now is on COVID-19, and it's very hard to convince donors to donate under the current circumstances for the non-COVID cases in Gaza. As of today, actually no vaccines yet, even for health workers or for the population in Gaza. Talking about, it may, arrive by the mid of February, but until now, no one in Gaza has been vaccinated. The accumulative number of positive cases was 52,747, and the active cases until now is 3,500. Of these are 36 critical and 64 are moderate. I have to say that the current protocol by the Minister of Health is only to test people above 50 years old, and all people less than 50 years old, even if they suffer symptoms, so they recommend for them to stay home. So, these figures actually is kind of false figures, you would say, because it doesn't tell you exactly how many people we have in our community who are, being positive. I have to say that the health situation or the health system is exhausted. All the time they are moving from one crisis to another. Sometimes it's emergency situation and, because of escalation and lots of injuries. Sometimes it's lack of fuel to run the generators at hospitals. Sometimes it's a lack of supplies. So all the time they are, just going from one crisis to another. And now with COVID-19. This exhausted health system, it doesn't really allow the preparedness for new strains if it will come to Gaza. And the long-term blockade that was imposed on Gaza since 2007 is not enabling any kind of for this health system to be able to recover and to be prepared for a new crisis. So what are the key challenges? So I'm starting actually with the human resources, because this is a key issue and a very big problem for the people, for our hospitals, especially that we have a problem in the number, we have a problem in the skills of the human resources, and we have a problem in their motivations because they are not receiving their full salaries. The skills, because they don't have opportunities for training. I mean, Gaza is closed. Apart from the medical teams who used to come to Gaza and to provide some, training locally, the training opportunities for people out of Gaza is quite limited. And the people who manage to leave Gaza, they leave for good, so they won't come back. So this is one of the key challenges for the health system. And on the other hand, when we talk about infection control supplies and disinfectant and the personal protective equipment for the health workers, I mean, the situation in Gaza, as I mentioned, the poverty is high, the economic situation is really bad, lack of supplies at the hospital level. So this is is not allowing a proper or enough supplies of infection control. At the household level, because of poverty, people want to spend money or actually to buy masks or to buy hygienic materials. They tend to if they have the money, they will spend it on their food. They are struggling for daily food, so they want to spend money for the infection control and disinfectant. The ICU equipment and oxygen generators is a big issue in Gaza. As I mentioned, we didn't have enough ventilators or CPAP machines or non-enlarged ventilators to support people who need for oxygenation. But on the top of that, also we find out that our hospitals, they did not have enough oxygen generators to supply these ICU units. So actually, we have, as international organizations, we have to step in to start procuring oxygen generators, which take months in order to come to Gaza. MAP is one of the organizations who's procuring oxygen generators for the COVID hospital now. And we have made the order since November for 2 oxygen generators. And until now, it's not arriving into Gaza. And we expect this to come in March. So this is the situation. So the hospital, when the bed occupancy rate at the COVID hospital was really, when it was really full, and the oxygen generators in there were not enough to supply the ICU units. They have to move people from those units, from the COVID hospitals to other hospitals. So this is against their plan to keep other hospitals isolated and not having COVID-19 patients. But the situation dictated that to take these patients to other hospitals, and they were managed by staff who are not trained and not prepared for to work with COVID-19 cases. Also the central lab is suffering from severe shortages of diagnostic kits and lab reagents for testing COVID-19, in addition to the shortages of drugs and consumables, as well as the essential medical equipment. As I mentioned earlier, we have very long list of postponed elective surgeries that, including patients in need for cardiac catheterization. The key messages that I would like to share with you, that 13 years illegal closure and blockade has critically undermined the Gaza preparedness to respond to corona pandemic, and should urgently support testing and infection control, essential medical supplies. And this aid must be sustained for the duration of the pandemic if disaster to be averted. International aid should attempt to support sustainable development to the Palestinian healthcare system. And Israel, as an occupying power, has a responsibility in coordination with the national authority to ensure medical and hospital establishments and services, public health and hygiene in the occupied territories, and particularly actually in Gaza. The international community also should demand sorry. The international community should also demand the protection of Palestinian health workers and seek accountability where they are attacked, and urge the removal of other barriers to health, including Israeli permits regime. Immediate solution for patients who need referral for medical treatment. International community must play their part in enabling the Palestinians to access COVID-19 vaccination programs. As I mentioned before, I believe they started somehow in the West Bank with a few thousands of vaccine for health workers, but it's not the case now for Gaza yet. And it's believed that international community, Israel and the Palestinian Authority, they all should ensure that that people have access to this vaccination. MAP has actually published a paper about its position on the equal access to vaccine. This link actually to this paper about the access to vaccine. In Israel, perhaps it's the highest rate of vaccination for COVID-19, perhaps across the best rate in the world. In comparison, just the areas where Israel is occupying, they are still not vaccinated and not receiving any vaccines.
Hello, Fikr. Thank you so much for all you have been sharing. We have quite a few questions here. Is there anything else you would like to share before we move to questions?
No, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It's a lot of information. It can be really overwhelming, I think, to hear, and I'm sure to live. We have a few questions related to what you've been sharing with us. One of those was concern about how medical personnel are leaving or aren't trained, and was wondering if there are efforts being made to bring in medical personnel to replace those that have left or to meet that shortage.
Unfortunately, not to replace people, we are talking about, employing people. So, to invest in some people, to be trained and, have the enough experience, it takes actually many years in order to get this is done. And for the Ministry of Health, for example, or the health organizations who work locally, if they have the financial, capacity, so they will tend to employ people. But the majority of the people they would employ, they are juniors and or newly graduates, not necessarily have the same experience like the people who left. I mentioned that the people who usually leave are the most skilled people, the people who will be able to find opportunity outside of Gaza, and the one who's staying are the one perhaps who less skilled people. So it's not like straightforward. For example, MAP, we have sent a doc surgery, for example. He has to study for 6 years. And this is in order to replace the skilled plastic surgeons a surgeon who was retired recently. So now the plastic unit, the main plastic unit in Gaza, is run by non-qualified, I would say. He's a person with experience, but he's not a plastic surgeon who is running the main plastic unit in Gaza. So this is an example, how things. So we only have a few people who are quite skilled, and these are the ones who's leaving. And in order to replace them, you won't have these people in Gaza. You won't find the skilled people in order to employ them.
Thank you. There was also, we really appreciate hearing the story of the girl with cancer who had the delays caused such trouble and eventually actually led to her death. Is that story written somewhere that we can share that with people? And also wondering if you have any other personal stories that you would like to share.
Yeah, actually the story and many other stories are all documented in the WHO reports that they are published in a monthly basis. And I think they call them access reports. I can share a link with you afterward, and perhaps you can share with everyone. But there is plenty of stories, unfortunately, similar to this case that I mentioned.
Okay, thank you. There was also a question about how do you see what is restricting the WHO and other organizations from getting more medications and assistance to hospitals in both Gaza and the West Bank?
Sorry, it was a bit, the internet connection was not stable. Can you repeat that, please, Sarah?
Yeah, there was a question about what you see is the main problem in restricting the WHO and other organizations such as MAP from getting more medications and assistance to hospitals in Gaza and the West Bank?
Honestly, the WHO and other organizations, they don't think, that their role is to get in these medications. All the organizations, they try to support and they are contributing to these shortages. This is considered like part of the mandate of the Ministry of Health itself. But given, as I mentioned, given the financial crisis, the poor infrastructure, perhaps the political split, the blockade, etc. All this is not enabling the Ministry of Health in Gaza to be able to procure these drugs items. So what the WHO and MAP and ICRC and other organizations are doing are, trying to fill in some gaps, but they cannot replace, the role of the ministry. And that's why the problem keep emerging. And it's not like, what we are doing is just, contributing and trying to keep the situation as it is and not to deteriorate further. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Another question we had was about cooperation between different medical providers. We're wondering, why is cooperation fragmented between UNRWA and MOH and other organizations? And wondering what can be done about this.
Actually, I mentioned this about the primary healthcare services, because the Ministry of Health, they have like almost 50 primary healthcare centers, and the UNRWA, they also have like 22 primary healthcare centers, and the local NGOs, they also run number of primary healthcare centers, and some of the intervention actually offered at the Ministry of Health, it's the same like the one is offered at UNRWA. And for people, some people, they like shop between these centers, so they go to this center, especially the refugees, because they have access to the ones for the Ministry of Health and also the one with the UNRWA. Currently, actually, I know that they are trying to computerize, all these primary health care systems. So anyone who accesses the UNRWA clinic will, the people at the Ministry of Health, for example, primary health care center will know that this person has been to UNRWA, for example. So they will have united database for patients. But this is, it's not happening smoothly, and so far, the coordination process is somehow, I won't say, there is some kind of coordination, but it's kind of fragmented, I would say. It's it should happen more efficiently, and it should happen in a way to enable, given the very limited resources that we have, it's quite limited, and it has to be utilized wisely. This is what I was trying to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Fikr. We appreciate your knowledge on this. There was another question that was wondering, what is your typical day at work? What is your focus in this situation?
Actually, I have to say that, I mentioned, that MAB is working on emergency and complex care and women and child health, disability, and psychosocial support. So the typical day, actually, when I go to the office as a director, I have to ensure that all our programs are ongoing. However, the vast majority of my day, it's for coordinating the efforts with our local partners and also communicating with the key colleagues from the hospitals, and because there is like daily requests for support for the services, I mean, for the COVID-19 and for the zero stock items, for infection control supplies, communicating this with our UK office, with our fundraising teams, writing proposals, communicating with some donors, يعني giving a kind of, overview about the situation in Gaza, sharing case studies. So this is how the day usually how I spend my days. It's mix of these activities between the local and between the head office and between our donors, and writing proposals in order to get fund to be able to support our hospitals and primary health care centers.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you so much for sharing your time with us and sharing what is going on. We really appreciate all the questions that we had, and really appreciate your great responses to those questions. Unfortunately, we don't have time to answer every question, but I would now like to move on to our Kumi action to help us respond to what we have heard, right? And to do what we can to help. Thank you so much, Fikr. So our Kumi action. Do you have a local dentist, doctor, or medical care facility that you love? Let people know and simultaneously raise awareness of the situation in Gaza. Write a review of your favorite medical facility or practitioner on Google Maps or another review platform. Give them full stars. At the end of your review, include a message like, I'm lucky to have easy access to the medical services and facilities I love and need. Residents of Gaza have no such luck, as Israel denies the medical care to cancer victims. There's also a video from Beit Salem that will be shared in the chat that you can include in your message, and the link will be in the chat. Please share a photo of your message on social media, and then include a link to the page of the Kumi Now website, along with the hashtags Open Gaza, Kumi Now, and Kumi6. Fikr, do you have anything you would like to add? Any thoughts about the Kumi action or other ways that people watching can help promote Palestinian medical access?
Yeah, thank you so much. Actually, the messages I just mentioned at the end, I would love actually if can be shared widely. And also, I would love to know if our map paper about the vaccination issue to be shared. This is for now. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. We'll try to add that for sure. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. A link to this session will be available on the Kumi Now website and on YouTube in a day or so, and it will be shared in the next newsletter. So we greatly appreciate it if you would share this amazing session with your friends and colleagues, as well as information on our future sessions. Next week, we will be addressing Israel's many discriminatory policies towards the Palestinian people, particularly limitations on citizenship denial and discrimination, and the restrictions on movement and opportunities that come with it. That's opportunities that seek to divide Palestinians into small Bantustans. If you'd like to be reminded of the online gathering an hour before it begins, you can register for email reminders at kuminow.com/online using the form at the bottom of that page. So we hope to see you back here next week. Thanks again for joining us.